Welcome to Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors Special Board Meeting, December 14, 2022. Roll call, please, Kyle.
Director McKinney,
Here.
Director Sherrill,
Here.
Director Stockman,
Here.
Vice President Cockrell, and President Burke.
Yes. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Open the meeting to any member of the public who would like to make a comment at this time. Any member of the public would like to speak. Closing the public comment area, I have a motion on the consent calendar. I note that Director McKinney has asked to be recused from voting on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion on the consent calendar? So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, please, Kai.
Director Sherrill,
Yes.
Director Stockman,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes. Item six.
Passes. Excuse me.
Item 6 is the oath of office for newly elected directors, myself, Cynthia Sherrill, and Patrick Hanna. And perhaps we could gather over here, Patrick, and we could just get together. Kai, are you going to, who's going to do the honors?
I've got it.
Okay.
Hi, two process questions. Are we raising the hand and can they do it as a group if they choose?
Yes, raise your right hand, and at the beginning, you will just say "I" and say your own name, and then you will continue with the actual script.
Great, thank you.
Please honor here.
All right. I state your name.
I, Gary Burke,
Do solemnly swear. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the
Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California.
The Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance. To the Constitution of the United States.
to the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties.
And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
Upon which I am about to enter.
on which I am about to enter.
Thank you.
Director Sherrill, sorry, we have that.
You're an official from the elections office.
Gary,
Thank you.
there you go. I'm sure you have a couple of words. Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Before we leave, could I ask all the board members to join me here in the front of the room for a moment? And ask Steve Stockman if he would come up to the front to join us for a moment. I would like to acknowledge the fine work that Director Stockman has done over these past many years. And the board is going to issue a proclamation to Steve, the proclamation of the Coastside Fire Protection District, honoring Steve Stockman for his service on the board of directors. I want to take a moment just to read this just briefly. Whereas Steve Stockman was born in Portland, Oregon in 1958 and moved his family to Half Moon Bay at 63 at the young age of 5. Do you remember? Whereas he has been a resident of the coast for the last 59 years, whereas Director Stockman was appointed the Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors in 2017. Whereas Director Stockman was elected to the Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors in 2019. Whereas during his years serving as a member of the Board of Directors of Coastside Fire Protection Districts Director Stockman is appointed and proudly served on the Emergency Preparedness Committee, the Land and Structures Committee, and the Vegetation Management Committee. And whereas Director Stockman has, during his years in the Board of Directors for the Coastside Fire Protection District, worked to nurture and grow relationships with promote communication and trust, needed to ensure the measurably high levels of service currently being delivered to the residents of the district. And whereas Director Stockman now leaves the Board of the Coastside Fire Protection District, looking forward for more time with his wife Kathy, their son Justin and Nick, and their families, which include 6 grandchildren, all living on the coast. And whereas in addition to spending time with his family, Director Stockman intends to continue exploring artistic pursuits, including but not limited to watercolor painting, athletic pursuits, and including but not limited to biking, hiking, skiing, and exploring the West. Whereas Director Stockman is held in the highest regard by his colleagues on the Board of Directors, former board members, staff, and the community, all of whom wish to extend sincere appreciation for his outstanding performance of duty during his tenure as a member of the Coastside Fire Board. Now, therefore, I, Gary Burke, President of the Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors, on behalf of the Coastside Fire Protection District, do hereby honor Steve Stockman on his exemplary service and commitment to the Coastside Fire Protection and offer sincere appreciation for his years of service on the Board of Directors. Steve, congratulations.
That really, it means a lot to me, and I consider you all friends, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to serve with you. Thank you.
One more item.
Yeah. Hold that, Steve. You guys have to all get in for a moment together? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
one more.
Your speech is smart, very smart. I state your name. Are we adjourning now or what? Adjourning?
No. All right, thank you. Moving on to new business. Item A, election of board officers. This one?
7A. We did 6.
Okay.
Ceremonial.
First item on that thing would be the election of the president of the board. Do I have a motion?
I nominate Director Burke as president.
Second. Moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Roll call, please, Kai.
Director McKinney,
Yes.
Director Cheryl,
Yes.
Director Hannah, Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes. The next item that we have for board office would be the election of the vice president of the board. I'm going to nominate J.B. Cockrell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Moved and seconded. Roll call, please. Aye.
Director McKinney,
Yes.
Director Cheryl,
Yes.
Director Hannah,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to committees, and before we go to this, let me just take a moment to kind of give an overview of this item. I mentioned earlier in a prior meeting that one of the considerations on the board policy in the board policy for board membership or committee membership should be given to the relevant training and background and experience. But certainly people can join the committees and gain that experience, and we're going to have an education program to provide more education to the members of the board. Just to make you familiar with what we now have, we really have on the board 4 committees. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, because it's been changed a little bit. We have a finance committee, We have a volunteer committee, we have a land and structures committee, and we have a vegetation management committee. We also have liaison members, and we have currently liaison for CERT, California Special District Association, the ASLJPA, which is the paramedic and ambulance services, and we have also on emergency preparedness. Let me just very quickly touch upon the last one. What has been suggested and is currently we're going to be doing, and I think it would be appropriate and on emergency preparedness, that we're actually going to have a reverse liaison that the county OES manager, that Mr. Cosgrave's title,
District coordinator.
district coordinator, would be, would visit our meetings via Zoom, I assume, or however way he chooses to do it, and provide us updates on that particular subject on emergency preparedness. So we will not have a liaison directly for that, but we'll be getting a reverse liaison at our request. We have done that. So that's just background on the committees. And I would acknowledge the discussion that a number of board members had as to the value of rotating assignments and on these various committees. And there's a corresponding discussion that the value of experience and job training is helpful as well. And I've used the example of Director McKinney with his background in construction has been very helpful on that area. I know zero about it, so it is. So it's really a mix. However, I would emphasize that the committee structure is very flexible. Any member of the committee can join and attend a meeting, but not participate as a meeting member, because we only have 2 members at the meeting. They certainly can maybe a member of the public, listen in, comment, ask questions, and do everything they want. Similarly, even with the liaisons, if some particular board member would like to attend the special ALSJPA meeting, they can certainly go forward and do that. The current members that we have on committees, as best I can determine, if I'm correct on this, is finance is myself and JD on the finance committee. The volunteers, it has currently just one position, which is JD. The land and structures is Director McKinney and JD Cockrell, and vegetation management currently is Director Show. Is that the liaisons that we have at this point? CERT is again Director Cheryl. The California Special District Association is currently myself, and the ALSJP is myself. As I've mentioned, the emergency preparedness now will be directed from the county to us. We can pursue on this committee selection any way we can. It is not, we do not necessarily have to make all the decisions today. We can make changes next month or anyhow we want to. If any board member can want to swap, we can do it anytime we want. But I want to make a suggestion. We'll see how it works. I am going to suggest that the committee members that I mentioned remain on those committees, and that we ask if that newest member, Director Hannah, would serve on the volunteer committee, if you will, would also serve on the vegetation management committee, and also on the California Special District Association. And I know that's a mouthful, Patrick, but I said to you offline, I think in terms of getting oriented and getting involved, that your background of volunteers certainly is established, or since you are a volunteer. But I would ask that you consider doing those at least for the time being. And with that, I'm going to make a motion that the committee members stay the way they are, as I've just described them, with the addition of Director Hannah on the 3 committees that I've mentioned. That is a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Thank you.
President Burke, I think that being a part of the vegetation management committee to start with is something that's in my point in time when I was writing my blurb to be elected as this position. That was one of my topics that I discussed, and I think it's a topic that is on everyone's mind that lives in this urban wildlife interface that we all live in here on the coast. So that's a great and probably a meaty thing that I can get my hands on and learn more about. The volunteer committee as well. Yes, as you mentioned, thank you. I am a volunteer firefighter. I've been for 3 years here on the coast. It's a fantastic organization and would love to be an advocate and or an individual that can help benefit both the knowledge that the board has of what the volunteers do and vice versa, how the board is seen by the volunteers and how that can work together, hopefully better in the future. Not that it's not working well now. I would like to just say that I think that going back to you mentioning having specific individuals on committees where they happen to have skills in those direct environments. I'd like to mention that Director Shell does have an incredible amount of skill and knowledge in the architectural field. Well, how many years you've been in the architectural field? 30 years. So I would say that's a pretty good amount of experience. So in reference to not changing other things, I would suggest taking that into consideration.
Okay. Well, as we go forward, if there's anything that can be changed, we'll consider it. Any other comments? Yes.
I am very interested in understanding more about the fiscal policies. There's the finance committee.
Yep.
Because it is the area in which I have the most to learn.
Yeah.
Of the areas that are represented here. So I understand at this point that my participation on that committee would be as effectively a member of the public who sat in on the meetings and asked questions and read the background material and participated as best I can. But I just want to raise my hand and say that's my
Based on our earlier discussion, that one of the items you're going to talk about with education
yes,
is finance.
that is absolutely a component of education. So
So that would be one of the modules we would pull out.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So is there going to be like an education?
Well, I'm looking to you for a list of items of education the board, and one of them would be the Cal Fire contract. One of them would be finance, and the other items that we think we throw.
I'll have that up there.
Okay. All right, back to the committees. I'll say a motion as I said to for the members of the committee. Any further comments? Roll call, please, Kyle.
Director McKinney,
Yes.
Director Cheryl,
Yes.
Director Hannah,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
President Burke.
Yes. Moving on, thank you. Moving on to item G, resolution finding the meeting of the board of directors via teleconferencing to protect against ongoing health and safety risks. This has Chief Marks after this one. Let me just go on. This is simply a motion continuing one that we've done for the last, 18 months to have the ability to have Zoom meetings and for the public in view of the concerns of COVID and what it is. It's nothing new, it's just a repeat of something that we've done for, I think, 18 straight meetings, if not longer. With that saying that, I'm going to make a motion to adopt the resolution implementing that, which is number 2022-68. We have a second.
Second, but Debbie.
It is pretty boilerplate at this time.
From what I've observed over the last few months, this is something that's been brought up by legal that will potentially change here coming into the new year.
Yes, and the next item on our agenda is going to talk about some changes that will be taking place. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2022-68. Any further comments? Roll call, please, Kai.
Director McKinney,
Yes.
Director Cheryl,
Yes.
Director Hannah,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes. Item H, under new business, review, discuss, and provide direction on planning for return to in-person board meetings. Attorney Savarese or Kai, I guess this is your item.
That is correct. Thank you. I won't belabor the point. It's laid out in the staff report, but the bottom line is that everybody in the state, presumably, unless the governor changes his plan to end the declaration of emergency at the end of February, everyone will need to go back to in-person meetings in March. That sets up a couple decision points for the board. One of those decision points is whether to continue hosting a meeting through Zoom for the benefit of the public who may want to attend remotely. Board members will not be able to attend remotely except under limited circumstances. And we can talk more about those circumstances if you like. So we're really here tonight to discuss whether or not to continue the Zoom function that we've been doing for the last 2.5 years.
Thank you, Kai.
And this would benefit the public.
That's correct.
Well, I guess the items that are in the packet that speak to some of the exceptions would be that if a board member wishes to attend in a non-Zoom fashion, they could do that under these two exceptions, the just cause exception and the emergency circumstances. So,
That's right. And the way that works, and that will be only in play through 2024 as it currently stands. But you will, sort of as a right, you can attend a meeting remotely for just cause. You can just sort of invoke that you have just cause twice in a calendar year. You have to meet one of those listed circumstances to invoke the just cause exception. But I think the idea is that you take the board member at their word when they say they have just cause. The medical emergency or emergency circumstance exception requires the board to make a finding that in fact there is an emergency circumstance, which should allow the board member to participate remotely.
Here's my sense, and what would mean is that number one, the public will always have access to Zoom to come to our meetings. Ideally, the second part is that we will meet in person, but there are exceptions where you can meet off-site, traveling, or some other way. That would be the net of what we're doing. And from my perspective, I'm not sure if you want to vote on this thing.
I think we really just want direction. You don't necessarily need to create a policy here. It's really just letting the staff know whether or not you want them to continue hosting the meetings on Zoom.
Any member of the board want to change what I just said?
No.
You got agreement?
Yeah, I think that having the ability for the public to have Zoom or in person, anywhere we can open it up for the public, especially if people being more used to Zoom more now than ever is great.
Well, I think that certainly the public access via Zoom is something that be with us forever. Absolutely. We do. Oh, I must admit, the amount of paperwork and discussion that has gone on this item, just an our meeting. Can you imagine if you multiply this by every city, county, and special district, how much paper and time is spent on this stuff? Anyway, you got your answer.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. Item I. Review and discuss amending the statement of investment policy, Chief Cox.
I'm gonna hand that actually to Kai.
So thank you. President Burke asked that the Finance Committee take a look at this policy and did that. And with Jean's help, made some edits to the policy to eliminate sort of duplicative language that didn't really serve much of a purpose. And the real substantive change is to add in the class enhanced cash fund as another available investment opportunity.
Yes, thank you, Kai. In our packet is what was the old investment, policy. And there's been a couple of strikeouts and just modernizing the new policy, nothing the consequence of that. And as Kai just said, the major addition is adding California class. And it is just a new investment policy that is very safe. It's restricted in terms of what they can invest in. It is the advantage to us as far as I'm concerned is we currently can invest and do invest in late at the state level. We invest at the county, if you will, with that. And then we also have an investment with an organization called PAS. The acronym might be getting me what it stands for now, but that is where the monies are placed with for our former employees' health care. Those three organizations that are mentioned, if we were to put money in them, it has to be dedicated to a certain subject. With California class, we can put it in as like a bank account. And we would earn hopefully more than we would have laid for the county. That's my basic idea. The board has not made any decision that we're going to put any money into it. It's just saying that we have that option. And I just am suggesting that we put it in the investment policy with the expectation is that once we understand what the renovation or the rebuilding of 44 is, that we may have some cash that we might want to invest just for return on investment or whatever. I'm not sure if there may be other reasons to do it. It's just another opportunity that there is no decision in terms of actually doing it. That's the gist of what we have.
So do I understand that class is an opportunity to invest money with that is not specifically directed towards a certain?
Towards what?
So any monies that are invested in class, if invested in class, are not tied to a specific.
Correct. That's right.
So it could be used for anything within the district's.
Yes.
Demands financially.
Yes. I think my hope would be that it would simply give us a better return. I'm not sure exactly, but LAIF is probably paying 2%, and inflation is at 8%. We're not in a very enviable position of that. So class, I think, would be an alternative for that.
So obviously I'm going to target ignorant. So currently our investment funds that we have are in an organization called LAIF. And those are funds that are also equally able to be used for other.
Yeah, late monies, I misspoke. Late funds are fundable. We can move those around and do whatever we want. That's true. But when the PAS or putting money into some PAS fund for just investment has to be, they have another investment that will be specific for that purpose. We don't have flexibility, that's all. But late, the next time we certainly have.
Thanks.
All right, then I would just make a motion to adopt the new upgraded investment policy.
And second,
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Guy.
Director McKimmey,
Yes.
Director Cheryl, Director Hannah, Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yeah. Am I review and discuss and approve the surplus of all items?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
I'm taking it.
So, okay.
So basically, it looks like, a lot of old equipment and broken stuff between station 44 and station 40 that they're trying to clean and surplus or either donate. You guys see the list on there. I looked over the list and, we reviewed it and looks like a lot of items that are pretty much useless or broken, or if we're not using them, we might as well donate them or sell them at this point.
Yes.
And for the purpose of the public, there's probably 30 old items that are being suggested to be surplus. And according to our policy that none of these exceed $20,000. So it's just junk. What it amounts to. Do I have a motion?
So. Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the surplus of the equipment listed on the document. Any further discussion?
Last, Cynthia, do you, besides from a fire station, do you have storage anywhere
No, sir,
for cert?
no, sir.
Okay. Cause I'd see 10 27 by 72 white tables.
Which they were saying, oh, those white tables. They are different.
Okay, never mind, I say no more.
See, that's about.
How about the old gas cans?
No, thank you.
I'm good.
If she wants it, she's already got it.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's see, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please. Aye.
Director McKimmy,
Yes.
Director Cheryl, Director Hannah, Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes. Item K, under new business, review, discuss, and approve resolution of the Coastside Fire Protection District Board of Directors authorizing the district to invite bids for station number 40 new fencing project. She still works, she.
Yeah, yes, I have it. So we went out to bid, we had Nathan, the architect that we have on retainer, walk with me, we walked the perimeter, we looked at things, he put together a pretty good report, Kai worked on it as well. I think they put in the budget approximately, or you guys did $250,000 as a cap for it. We don't have any idea at this point what it'll cost until we start getting bids and stuff like that. So fencing the full perimeter, putting the gate here, those concrete holes, those square holes, we have trees probably 20 years ago. I wanted them to fill those, we want them to be tripped and hurt themselves. They want to get a shed out back to cover the roof prop, because that was the expensive roof prop we paid for, and it's getting weathered pretty bad. That's a part of it. Fence along the back. And then they were gonna take some of the old fence down and put a new hose drying rack. We have that old wood one, it's probably John Riddell built in 1970, I think.
Probably.
So we were gonna have them use some of that fence, because there's nothing they could do with it, and actually build us hose drying prop right there, instead of using that old wood. Pretty extensive report, and I think once it goes out the bid, and hopefully we get several contractors, I was gonna meet with them on site and walk with them all one time, and that way they all understand the scope of the job before they bid it.
You know, great, thank you. Questions?
Chief Silver.
Yes.
Can you just bring it up to speed real quick as to how we got to where we need a fence?
I was told by Chief Cox that I think the board recommended it for security. We had some, I think at one point somebody stole a Cadillac converter off one of the firefighter vehicles
Yes.
here at nighttime. There's been a couple occasions where there's been people snooping along the back of the station where the guys sleep, where they woke up and heard people back there. So I think this overall security of the station property, the board felt it would be a great idea to possibly fence it and have an electric gate here for the fire apparatus, and obviously the rest of us can come in and out.
And I think at one point, somebody stole a helmet out of the cafe.
I know we found Ken Lord's helmet on a medical aid one day, actually. That was missing for a while, and we went on a medical aid in somebody's house on their dresser. That's Ken Lord's helmet. So, yeah, there's been some odd things, in my experience over the years of actually working at the station. I know we had a homeless guy sleeping in a recliner one night before we had the good locks at the door. That door used to not lock well, now we have a good lock, but, if you didn't really wiggle it, make sure it was locked back in the day, we found a guy in there sleeping, just random things like that. We felt the security for the folks here would be ideal.
Yes.
Will the gate open fast enough to get the equipment in and out?
Well, the engine's still gonna go out the bay door, and just be when they're returning, coming back from the calls,
Okay,
yeah. And the only way it would have to open that way would be if there's extra engineer training maybe, then they would go out the gate. So,
and in that case, then it's not, the timing is not so critical.
yeah, it should. I mean, it is still critical because it'd still be responsive to the call, but engine 40 would probably going out the bay door, and then. I know the one at 41 opens when the tones go off,
Yes,
but this was a entry gate, so I don't know if that really be necessary
You
here.
had her a punch in the.
Yeah, or just even the concrete weight things that you pull up to it and open, so. Actually, when we bid it, we can discuss maybe operation of it, making sure it's a good motor and something that actually can facilitate it at a decent speed, and it's not sitting there waiting 45 seconds for it
great.
to go, so that's something to discuss, a good idea, though, to talk about it.
Thank you.
Chief, just a question, I looked at the
Yeah.
schematic here, but just where is this new fence gonna go? Is it gonna go along back, all the,
Yeah, it's gonna go along the back of the property where there's a French drain along the back, so it'll tie in from, the property next door from their fence, all the way to the road.
okay,
And then, the existing fence is gonna be removed and replaced with a 6-foot fence.
okay.
And, that'll go all the way around to the other property's fence as well. And then they're gonna come into the parking lot, and they're restructuring the parking lot. They continue to have the handicap spots, the disabled parking, and I think 5 spots on one side of the gate, and then everything else will be on this side. So they'll still have public parking. And then we've also discussed in the fire marshal's office, talking to the city and seeing if we get fire department parking signs only in front of the station here to prevent, recently we've had people long-term parking. And I've talked to the sheriff's office a few times and had them cite vehicles or at least notice them that they've been there for way too long. So maybe we can get that as well to add additional parking for it, only,
Yeah.
but 2 hours only, or,
That's needed.
yeah. So that's an option as well.
Further questions? Comments? None? No. Do I have a recommendation? Let's see. Motion to adopt resolution number 2022-69, resolution Coastside Fire Protection District. Board of Directors authorize additional type bids for station number 40 new fence. Well, moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Scott.
Director McKimmy,
Yes.
Director Cheryl. Director Hannah,
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell,
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes. Moving on to items N, review, discuss, and approve updated Coastside Fire Protection District Volunteer Firefighter Handbook.
That's me. So the handbook, everything's been the same on it except for one change where we proposed to add additional volunteers. The number that the board used to allow was 21 and we're proposing to add it to 25. And that was, Chief Lord and Captain Meanstein and Pickard, had all thought that it would be more beneficial to the academy side, the group side, and the turnaround and hopefully having more volunteers stay on board.
So that's why, excuse me, due to attrition, they're looking forward. to
Yeah,
attrition
yeah,
rates.
trying to go a little bit bigger size and, a lot of these, the folks are getting jobs
Sure.
and moving on, so if we can up the numbers a little bit, hopefully we can keep our numbers higher.
I just look at that it's $10,000 per volunteer to outfit them, train them, insurance them. That's a lot of money, big investment for the district.
Yeah,
My only concern.
yeah,
That's something I guess we might have to consider as some sort of a minimum commitment. Because I'm aware of one particular case where a guy came and went through all the training and all the equipment and stayed 1 year
yeah.
from beginning to end.
I think and Patrick, you might echo in on some of this. I think you'd be hard pressed to like get a contract with somebody to be a volunteer. They go, I get a job, in Colorado or something. There's no way you could.
I think the hard part is in this day and age with volunteers is, I mean, they meet the same requirement as a full-time paid staff.
Sure.
With their full-time job, so.
Training, yeah.
It's so hard to have volunteers and their dedication, it's needed for us and we love to have them, but I think it would be hard to have them sign a contract of some sort, but if we could get extra,
Probably be illegal, but
yeah, yeah,
Well, to the point of the cost, right, that is an issue and does state that it's approximately $10,000 per firefighter to
Yeah.
outfit them with their actual PPE and needs of equipment.
yeah.
Is there some report that we have that goes back a year, 2 or 3 that shows the actual Coastside districts spend for that equipment? Because I know some equipment comes through grants. some
Yeah.
equipment comes through other areas, but doesn't actually affect the budget of the Coastside district.
I haven't seen it, but I'm sure
If we could just see the actual numbers, then we can better understand what 20, 25 people or what the additional 5.
Yeah, because a lot of times when people leave, like, it's not like we throw their safety clothing away, right?
Or use them as surplus.
You hope that they're both the same size.
I think the $10,000 per individual number is accurate, but not from the sense of we're able to use
Helmets.
older
and-
equipment that paid staff are no longer using, that is still within the range of its 10-year lifespan, whatever the lifespan is. So to see a number would be great.
Patrick, I'm not gonna take the time to look through, in a detailed finance we used to have, and I have one that's still here. a line item for volunteer expenses. And in our upcoming financial review, that will be a question that we'll. Sure. Okay. Good one. Okay.
So basically, we're gonna look at actual cost of what it costs versus. That's what it costs to outfit a fully outfitted brand new volunteer with all brand new stuff that we're actually able to utilize. Some gear that maybe the person will use for 1 year, they're gonna use it 5 times. And so that might not cost as much.
Is our volunteer program comparable to other volunteer programs in the region? Are we bigger, smaller?
They have a
more
bigger
intense?
volunteer program in Santa Cruz County than we do up here, so I mean, you might be able to elaborate.
It's larger in, if you figure in the size of the geography and number of personnel. I think per capita, I would say that this is a pretty good size. To Director Cockrell's point, we run into the same thing with the programs down in Santa Cruz County of the instance you said of like losing somebody after a year. In Santa Cruz County, they lose them a lot sooner, to be frank sometimes. And I think a lot of that is in the messaging that when we orient these folks and tell them what that commitment is gonna be. Because a lot of times we have, at least down there in Santa Cruz, folks come in and maybe their eyes aren't wide open, they don't know exactly how much it's gonna take, and it's a lot of training, and they get going through it, and this is great. And I think our folks here have done a really great job of making sure that it's well messaged what they're getting into. I think that helps quite a bit. As far as the program goes, I'd say they're comparable, as far as response goes and everything, and like responsibility level.
Yeah.
Well, historically, volunteers were people like Patrick, people who lived in the area, wanted to be of service to the community and stayed. And we have a number of those volunteers, and we've become a place where people come, so they can put it on their resume.
Yeah.
And their goal never was to be there. The goal was for us to punch their ticket so they can go to the city of San Francisco, for example. And just be
Yeah, a lot of volunteer agencies and programs are struggling throughout the state for sure. I mean, I came from one of the better volunteer programs in the Central Valley, which was Boca Raton. We had 45 volunteers and we had 6 paid staff when I started there. And the volunteers for how we survived. We couldn't run to the vegetation fire structure without our volunteer staff, and that program completely dissolved. It's no longer because of this scenario, this issue, and the amount of training and the farmers and the construction workers. Those people used to be able to leave their tractor and leave their field, and they would come grab a water tender for us and go to the vegetation fires, and it just became 400 hours of training and this and that, and they couldn't keep up with it and have their normal lives.
Is that what?
So in understanding the profile of your volunteers. And I'm asking because I honestly don't know, what is the percentage of, here's a young person who really would like to be a professional firefighter, and so they're in this as a stepping up. Here is a person who is a professional and doesn't intend to become a professional firefighter, but wants to serve their community. And here is a firefighter, a volunteer who either has been a volunteer for a very long time or is in this, they're older volunteers and they're there because their expertise is valuable, their knowledge, and they have, there is a desire to have that community around them.
I would say the percentage, and Chief Armstrong not really help me, but the percentage of younger folks who want a career in the fire service or the medical profession is probably the highest number right now. And it's just a true stepping stone.
Right.
I would say the communities like La Honda and King Mountain tend to have more of a, hey, I live up here, I'm gonna help out.
Yeah.
And I would say this location gets more of the, I'm gonna try to get a job in the fire service as soon as I can. I'm gonna build a resume. That's my opinion.
Okay.
That's what I think.
I would agree.
I mean, even in Oka, when I was there with the 45 volunteers, I would say 95% of them were trying to get career jobs. I was one of them. I started as a volunteer as well, and that was my whole intent. And we had a few guys I can name on one hand that had great jobs that allowed them to be volunteers. One of them worked for PG&E, and they let them go on strike teams with us, let them go on fire. Then you come home and get his PG and try to go back and make a lot of money. And then I had a crane operator who's like, I never want to be a fireman full time, but I love volunteering on the weekends when I'm around, and I make too much money on my crane, you know, so.
Right.
But 95% of them wanted career jobs, and almost all 95% of them are in career fire service jobs now, and that's why the program went away.
Are we actively encouraging the percentage of our volunteers who would like to have a real job in the real fire department, you know? Are we helping them?
I would say just by the amount of training you put them through, they're having firefighter one when they walk out of here, and that's the first step. And yeah, we're helping them a lot. I would say we're helping feed a lot of fire departments
Yes.
with young active
That's
firefighters.
a little of a concern.
Yeah.
Can we feed our fire department? Is there a demand? Is there an opportunity?
For them to come directly into us, they have to apply for CAL FIRE, and we do get some.
That's item number N.
We do get some of them throughout the state and through other places as female firefighters, but because the Coastside Fire District has engineered the fire cabinet, we don't have a firefighter participant. We're not a stepping stone, I guess you would say, organization here because of what the contract requires, which is we run 2 engineers and a fire captain, which isn't traditional to anywhere in the fire service in theory, that we do it for operators and the paramedics and the other stuff. And that was just how this contract's all been.
We have a member of the public who would like to speak.
Yes, thank you. I think it's important to distinguish, these are all issues on how you retain your volunteer staff and what affects it. And I don't want that to take away from the value that, especially within this district, that the volunteer firefighters provide and have historically provided and keep providing, even in the environment where it's hard to retain people. And I don't want the issue to be lost either, that this is not a volunteer issue. This happens in police and fire agencies every day. And there's a constant movement of one agency that trains somebody, and then the next day they take a different position.
Yeah.
And that's always existed in the fire service and in public safety. So I don't want the message to be lost. And yes, that is a problem, and each agency has to adjust to that to retain the people. And I think this volunteer agency does a good job, as you brought up, Chief, of within their hiring and interview process to try to pick the people that have the greatest deal of standing to stand. And for Director Hannah's point early on about the true cost. The cost, whatever cost this board in this district pays for volunteer firefighters, I believe the service that and the product that you get from them, whether it's having 2 additional people on a structure fire or a rescue, is hard to measure and financially. That's not hard to measure. The value highly outweighs whatever cost is coming from district funds to provide that. So as a member of the community, I want to express that point, that let's not get lost in talking about the dollar value of this. The value to this community is well worth whatever we pay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know for certain, like what he said, is I've been on calls when I worked on the fire engine here to where the volunteer company came to help us, and now there's an ALS type call for, say, a heart attack. And the volunteer company says, hey, we'll stay here with this, we'll do this stuff. And now our paramedic engine's able to go take care of the ALS side of it because the volunteers were there. Otherwise, we couldn't have left that call, and you might be still waiting for engine 17 stuck in traffic coming over the hill, or engine 72 from Pacifica. So the value is great in those scenarios when we can use that.
Other comments?
Are we going to be discussing this further, or are we adopting this current policy? Because it sounds like.
Can I save that question for a minute, and I'll, if you will, please. Let me just by this point of information, which some of you gave, some years ago, we had a real discussion, a long discussion in this board relative to the value of the volunteers. And obviously they echo your comments, they're extremely valuable, but it was interesting at that time, and I'm not sure it's still true, that statewide, the number of volunteers departments were declining, primarily in urban areas, but clearly that reason I think pretty obvious in that area, but certainly not on areas like here in the coastside, which is so bad. Let me add a couple of questions and get back to your point. Is that, you know, this is a volunteer handbook. This is something that would be given to new volunteers as a kind of a dictionary, you know, item as a direction and what's going on and so forth. And number one, certainly I personally would approve the increase to 25 that is incorporated in by volunteers. I okay the whole history that's in here that kind of brings us along here. The business of that's mentioned about Chief Pimentel having a title. He's earned it. He's been here a long time. And certainly worked great time to do it. I have no problem with that. And even the cost, I think, is certainly reasonable, whatever that cost is. However, here's the but. There's some things that I think that need to be looked at, and I briefly mentioned this to Chief Cox a little bit ago. There's some things in here that I think are just confusing, and I have asked Chief Cox, if you will, to put together, this is a handbook for the volunteers. This board needs a volunteer policy, not a handbook. And I've asked him at some appropriate time to put that together so that we can review it. But one of the things that I look through here, it's always been confusing to me, and I've asked our former chief Larkin to kind of get it just became kind of alleviated. But you know, the definition of an auxiliary organization, which is used in here relative to the Half Moon Bay volunteers, if you will, and I think is the whole issue of Half Moon Bay as part of the Coastside volunteer. And believe me, I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just trying to make sure the explanation is understandable and compatible. But I think that whole, which is on page 5, it's just confusing. It just really is. Who the heck's on first on trying to do this type of thing that is it. For example, there's another item in here that I didn't realize, and it's true. It says that the Half Moon Bay volunteer, the Coastside volunteer, Coastside Fire Protection controls the revenue from the Half Moon Bay volunteers. I didn't know that. I'm not sure what that is, and I would ask the staff to take a look at that, if you will. The other, excuse me,
Which one was that again? The
Page 5.
no, that's on some, that's in the back of this someplace. I'd have to look for it.
Just over, I think, if I may, I think I read through some of this as well. And was confused.
Oh, yeah, whole funds. Yeah, it's on page 5. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, fine.
President Burke,
Yeah.
if I may, I read through it as well.
Yeah.
Recently, and there were some things there that were confusing. I think that going back to what you just said a minute or so ago, that this is a handbook, not a policy. I think it deserves both some attention and a policy be written that is accurate. I think there's a lot of things in here that may or may not have been moved over from something else.
Yeah.
Being that it has acted as a handbook, not a policy, we can either correct it to be a better handbook and or make a policy book that is a new version of working on the specifics of how it's worded. I think again, in regards to the Half Moon Bay Volunteer Fire Department 501c3 and the Coastside volunteers are two separate entities.
Yeah, but if you read page 5 in here, and if you didn't know background, you would be confused. But
And that's why I want to make sure that we take some, in the future, being part of the committee, I think we can adjust. JB and I can look into creating the difference between this handbook that may or may not be misspeaking as a handbook, and correct it, and then make a policy.
And I'm sure this whole subject might be in line item that will be in your. Okay.
I can tell you from attending the meetings, the line between the 501c3 and the operational, which would be the Coastside volunteers, is blurred. And the meetings tend to deal with both at the same time. And you almost have to work. Well, wait a minute, is this the Coastside volunteer? Is this the Half Moon Bay Volunteer Fire Department, or is this the Coastside volunteers?
Definitely true, Director Cockrell, in the sense that the same people are in the same room.
Yes.
Putting on a different shirt, talking about different subjects, so you're gonna have a little bit of blurriness there.
Absolutely.
That's expected.
I get that.
I think for the most part, from what I've observed, is they do function separately for separate reasons. And that can be better defined, I think, in the future.
The other, I won't belabor this by going through it, but on page 28, when it says employee assistance program, it says volunteers provide the following EAP services, which I think it's the other way around. They are provided, those services are provided to the volunteers. And okay, it's just confusing. I don't want to go through all of it to do it. I would, at this point, I would be points that we just made and with the proviso that we have a subject of a board policy on volunteers put before the board in the next couple of months, I would do approval by hand. And which includes the increase to 25.
And I believe that, Director Cockrell, myself on the committee of volunteers can work on.
Yeah.
This, all the subjects and all the questions that we just mostly talked about today. I think everyone unanimously wants to increase the number, and that's a good thing. A lot of positives there, a lot of ROI on what we get from our volunteers.
No questions
Also, but as far as that,
Today,
Yeah.
just kind of fuzzy. So I made a motion. We have a second.
second,
Moved and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please. Kai.
Director McKinney,
Yes.
Director Cheryl,
Yes,
Director Hannah.
Yes.
Vice President Cockrell
Yes.
and President Burke.
Yes. Item N, review and discuss proposed paramedic training program. Chief Armstrong.
Yeah, thank you, President Burke. The staff reports in your packet there. I'll kind of summarize here as much as possible. This is an attempt to kind of increase the pipeline of available paramedics. We've been at a widespread shortage of paramedics for some time, particularly increased since the pandemic. And so we have an opportunity here through a partnership through a local training consortium to actually send folks through a paramedic training program that's basically geared towards folks that are already working for a fire department. They actually have to be sponsored by a fire department to attend. This was something that a lot of local fire departments used to do. I don't know, Bruce, if you guys are used to do it as
The pay
back in,
guys.
yeah, like 90s or 80s and
Yeah.
90s and so forth. It's starting to come back now. The good news is, since the pandemic's on the decline, training programs are really starting to open back up. That was a big problem for a while. So we have an opportunity to send some folks. The cost is $15,000 per person. Working through the local workforce development folks, they say they are willing to cover up to, and I still have to get a final from them. That they would cover up to $6,000 per person, leaving $9,000 per volunteer on the district. It's about a year-long program. We can't make them apply within the district afterwards, which is, I recognize is kind of a detriment, but obviously we would hope they're already trained here as volunteers. They live in the community. A lot of them are working towards becoming a full-time firefighter. We would have a vetting process, and would only send people that are truly qualified, if this is approved. So happy to answer any questions that you might have.
it's a year-long process,
Correct.
5 days a week,
3 days a week.
3 days a week.
Correct.
And are they on their own for going to wherever this place is and coming back? Is that an expense that they bear or?
Yeah, so yes and no. This program right now is only available, they're trying to get it established at a location in Santa Clara County. I'm actually working with College of San Mateo, trying to get a similar program established there, which would obviously be a lot closer.
Great.
But just to get the program established is about a year. And then it has to be in place at that location for a year before workforce development dollars are available. So you're looking at like 2 years to even begin somebody at College of San Mateo. So where it's currently set up is in North Monterey County through the partnership with CAL FIRE. I could pretty much guarantee those people a place to stay nearby
Mhm.
for the 3 days a week that they would be in school.
Okay. So it's a full-time commitment for someone, 3 days a week for a year.
Absolutely.
And somehow they have to keep their jobs at whatever else, families, whatever else they do.
And that is, in my mind, one of the big barriers of entry right now as to it. I went to paramedic school, it cost $300, and I had a scholarship that covered it. It was awesome. It's through community college. It's the $15,000 is relatively cheap these days. AMR, the ambulance provider,
Right.
partners with an institution that's about $25,000 a person, and so unless you live at home or are independently wealthy or get into one of those deals where it's paid for and then you have to work off the contract for a couple of years, it's really, those are all reasons why it's gotten to be very hard to get paramedics into the workforce.
Well, I love it that you're working with the College of San Mateo. They already have their fire, whatever they call it.
Academy.
Academy there, and strengthening that is just a boon for the whole region, but especially for us, because here we are, right, so adjacent. But this seems like, who can do this? I mean, you want to look at your volunteers and say, who's the best, and that's who we want to send, but that level of commitment makes them not be able to do much else for the rest of their lives for 1 year.
Sure, and I don't know, we haven't begun to pull that. We didn't want to talk with volunteer group before
Sure.
getting approval from this board. I do know that there's some youngsters in that group that are working towards becoming a full-time firefighter.
Good.
If I may add, I mean, I think that any opportunity similar to this or this one-on-one is fantastic. And I think there will most likely be individuals that will see it as such a perk in itself to maybe manage their lifestyle to make it work both financially, time-wise, et cetera, right? Because it is an extremely high cost to become a paramedic, 25,000 on average. And you still have to do other things that you mentioned, have a job or be able to stay at home or whatever that is. The opportunity is fantastic. So maybe moving forward, being that it is specific to volunteers, we can kind of discuss this in the volunteer committee meeting perspective and see how we can make this happen.
Would you be sending them initially to Santa Clara, to Monterey? Because we have to wait 2 years to get it going up at the College of San Mateo.
Yeah, that program in Monterey, that thing is starting on March 28th. San Mateo County Fire, through our contract with San Mateo County Fire, they're looking to sponsor 3 individuals.
Okay.
That is looking like it's going to be current CAL FIRE employees that they send, which would also be available if that's what this board chose. But I thought it was an opportunity to tap that local community and the folks that are already volunteering here.
Sure.
It'd be great to get those people into the hopper to then become full-time here in the district.
It would be great.
The hopes would be that they get accredited as a paramedic in this county when they're done and they go, I live here locally, I work here locally, now I have an opportunity to apply and actually work here as a paramedic.
So, yeah, upon successful completion of the program, they would have everything that they need to get hired through the CAL FIRE system as a engineer paramedic, which is what we employ here in the district as engineer paramedics. Primary.
And we just have to hope that we continue and lead them in our direction. I guess.
And that is, there's nothing to guarantee that.
We happen to have the son of a former firefighter here, who's a paramedic here in the district.
Okay.
So it does happen that way.
Yeah.
And I know another volunteer we had, who by getting her paramedic certification, that allowed her to go to work for the Los Angeles City Fire Department. So I mean, there would be a lot of interest, because if you have your paramedic certification, you are guaranteed a firefighter job should you so want one.
Right. That's good. Thank you for exploring this program and figuring out how to have our people be there, and thank you also for continuing what must be sort of a slog to get going at the college, which is closer to us, because that would perhaps encourage even more of our volunteers to get involved.
And to Director Cockrell's point, since there's no members of the public on here, I can tell you if they finish and they apply, they will get a job here in the district.
So Chief, what are the next steps? And this is your proposal, we're all sounding like we've kind of been
Really supportive.
positively, what are the next steps?
If it is supported by this board, we will reach out, basically, we would go through the same process that we just did for San Mateo County Fire. We'd reach out to the entire volunteer group, kind of have an informational session with them, providing the details of the thing, and then what we're doing is Captain Pickard has put together a selection process that is an initial 50-question written test to gauge basically their basic EMT knowledge. A percentage of those folks would get taken to an oral interview to kind of get a little bit more of an assessment, and then as long as they meet all the qualifications and everything and they're willing to go, select the top up to 4 is what we have in here, but really whatever this group decides.
So for me, we would have to have a contract with each individual that if they dropped out of the program, they would pay back whatever money we paid into it thus far. And I think we'd have to have a contract that they would work for the district for a minimum 2 years.
And I'm looking up there because I don't know,
Then it's not gonna happen.
Well, I don't want to create, I mean, I think that creating any kind of roadblock to potentially getting more paramedics would be a negative. I think that, I think what I suggest is that we look at this proposal in some more depth, take the time to figure out exactly what it can be in the next. I don't know how urgent this is. I know you said the class is starting soon, but is your goal to have people in that class in like March, is it?
Yeah, so it begins in March. Timeline wise, I have to have names to the program by the end of January. This group will meet again in January, so if just asking if this board would like to table it, would you at least allow staff to begin that selection process on the auspice of just in case this does, hey, this is being considered by the board? If it does get approved, then this could be an opportunity. That would be good, at least have
I think yeah, I don't see the downside to this at this point. Forward with it, I would suggest that we just go forward, take the next step, and then see what the results are from their discussion in general and so forth. There's some questions about that might, I'd like to have a little bit more information on the ability to somehow tie them to the district or, sign up piece of paper or whatever the point may be. But the other, just a quick question, is there, obviously their current CAL FIRE firefighters are not applying to become paramedics. Is that one of the problems?
it's their inability, unless they were sponsored, it's their inability to go to school while working full time. Is the barrier for that.
Well, then how do the current paramedics that CAL FIRE become paramedics?
Most of them have come through an ambulance, working on the ambulance, or they literally, like I say, they're either independently wealthy or they lived at home still, or their bills are paid to be able to attend that training program.
Where I used to work, I got paid full time when I went to school. And I was not expected to go out and do what I did for the company. I kind of spent school. So seems to me that if you have staff members that have decided they want to get their paramedic certification, it seems to me it should be done on the fly. It is because that's the way it's done.
Well, let me just, because I mean, I think there's some things that need to be answered, but certainly I think the sense of the board is valuable. We'd like to proceed. There's certainly some things that I would like to know, and I think we would like to know, but this is not on our agenda, is not a vote to approve, it's just to review and discuss. And we've done that. Now your feedback to you is it looks positive. We all seem to be supportive of it. We're looking for more information and some facts.
And forgive me for, is it okay if we go ahead and start that?
Yes.
Tentative selection
Yeah,
process?
yeah.
Did you have something to say?
Just,
Yeah,
Steve.
Steve's done.
yeah,
Steve.
a couple points is one is to try to encourage CAL FIRE to pay. You're dealing with a state agency, so that's an issue that this board cannot solve in order for CAL FIRE to pay firefighters within their system to go to paramedic school, untouchable by this board. And then to Director McKimmy's point of a contract to keep the people that you paid to go to school. Again, it goes back to my earlier points. You have to look at it in a broader view. That, in my opinion, that the entire country and the state of California each agency is having a difficulty retaining paramedics. So I commend you for trying to find some piece, even if it affects you getting one employee, it's worth the value. And then we can talk separately about the financial aspect of retaining people and its effect on morale to hold medics an extra week because you only have a limited amount of medics and make them work 5 extra days in a row. If you can affect that with one person, And the one person that you lose to go, that decides to go to LA and work, you also have, if another agency's down there, you're able to pull that, one of their employees. So it all works out, and it's all worked out, and it's not always in balance. And at some point, some agency's gonna pay more than another, but you have to look at it as as a larger public safety, public service decision, not just always on what affects, even though as board members, your position is to do what's right for this board, but you have to keep a broad view. Thank you.
So that being said, the paramedic on this side of the hill can make 100,000. I drive over the hill, I make 150. It's that simple. That's your retention right there.
Right, and you have a separate argument and concern within this board on how to retain employees with that consideration and with this contract. It's a very big reality.
Well, let me just point out to you that this is not unique to the public service of the paramedics. I mean, the private sector is exactly the same problem. Sure, I mean, if somebody can do the same thing over the hill, they're gonna pay, or just deal with it and you manage it. That's part of the job. It's called free enterprise. Let me just, Chief, you have the answer to the direction that you need to go.
I think we should do it. Let's see how it plays out, because
You have direction to go forward.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, we'll explore, like I said, we'll try to begin that
Yeah.
tentative selection process and then have this in the agenda item for January, whether or not
I would absolutely go for it, and if it all turns to, then we do, okay, it didn't work. Okay, no, they, but this is, the only you're gonna find out is if you actually do it. We can all talk about it, and even the people who are thinking about it, they talk about it, but until they do it, they'll understand more, you know. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's, again, so somebody said the fact that you explored this, I think is your benefit, and congratulations on doing that. Okay, and then moving on, because there's no vote on that. But moving on to the board and directors and chief reports, finance committee, we did not have a meeting. However, all the financial information on our spreadsheet is available to the public and is in our packet today. The only thing I would mention, if I can hand it over to quickly, is that two quick items that you would notice in here. One is that the district did make a lump sum payment of $1.4 million to FERS for healthcare of our previous employee. And that saved us about $50,000, and I compliment the staff for doing that up front, to do that type of thing. The other interesting point is that a big portion of our revenue is ERAP, as you can see on here, and at least one organization, in fact, more than one, a number of organizations are trying to remove ERAP monies from special districts. One of those organizations, the Fire Districts Association of California, is trying to remove special districts, and thereby money would go to cities and counties, not special districts, which is kind of an interesting position, if you will, for a fire district to take against another fire district at this point in time, which I don't understand at all. But with that exception, there is nothing exceptional going on in this finance report. We're up to date and in great shape financially. Any questions?
President Burke, are you leading the pushback to the Special District Association to say our ERAF funds should remain?
Yeah, yes, the lead agency to protecting special districts is the California Special Districts Association.
Right.
And I think that's why I mentioned a couple of times, more important to become more involved, but I've been on a couple of Zoom calls with them and that type of thing. It's a tough situation because we have one of, I think, 3 counties in California that has excess ERAP that goes to special districts. Because all the other districts have not generated enough revenue for money to go to school district. It gets very complicated, but we are in jeopardy, I believe, of losing roughly 10% of our budget subsequent years. That's
Well,
what.
thank you for doing the effort for us, not
Yeah,
for us then.
it's big. Okay, moving on. Volunteer report. Director Clark.
I attended the volunteer meeting. It discussed some of the same things we did, as a matter of fact, surplusing equipment, landscaping stuff. Just like the very documents. They talked about the open house. In fact, we had volunteers there that were directing the party. They talked about the Tom and Jerry, the volunteer Christmas party. They had a Christmas bazaar at the IDES Hall. They will volunteers will be selling t-shirts, sweatshirts. They have a volunteer academy starting in January. And we have two of our faith people are going from the west and mixed and going back to Wisconsin to inspect the two new engines. I might ask you a question about how that go.
They said it went well.
Okay.
Everything looked good, and they said that, there's a lot of equipment that's gonna be several years out for a lot of agencies. It's about 3 years behind, it looks like, so, but they said, "Art, coming along." nice."
You gotta get early, okay?
Yeah,
And Kevin Son came back and shared his photographs. It was just the best part of my week.
yeah,
He was so excited
yeah,
to share what he'd seen and the changes that they made, the little improvements. I
Yeah.
mean, he gets way into it. And it
yeah,
was
it is.
just that enthusiasm and that pride and that, you know, we're making this happen and everyone got to see our
Yeah.
equipment out there. It
Yeah.
was great.
A lot of the training for the other volunteer departments, we do right here. For obvious reasons.
Yeah, in January you'll
And
have.
so
a hundred
they talked about
people.
hazmat training for Lahana and King's volunteers. They had a nice conversation about nice conversations too bad, but they had a structure fire in Las Vegas. Apparently one of the volunteers actually got inside with the hose line. So that the new status went for everything to do with that. In the late discussion. They've had two applicants for the EMS CPR. And then I guess the chip picker makes that, but you probably didn't bring. No training on Thanksgiving, Sunday cert training by volunteers. Then they have a bunch of stuff relating to their social stuff going on. And they had the treasury report, which the board is always interested in. They had a total, $24,289 and change. In the checking account, $173,000. And change in the savings for a total of $197,418. With a bill of $128 outstanding. That's the gist of the volunteer. It's a very short meeting, 41 minutes. So.
Might I just add as well, I know that I'm newly appointed to the volunteer committee with Director Cockrell. And it is the end of the year, and I think one of the things that I would like to hopefully do every year at the end of the year is maybe have a way of recognizing certain volunteers that have gone inside of a building and been on those, fires or been the individual who I'll have to look into how to do it, but the guy who spent the most hours, the individual who spent the most hours on an engine riding along, being involved in certain things.
I can tell you who that is off the top of my head.
I think you may figure a program for the volunteer of the year or something.
Good. Go ahead.
Finding ways to recognize the man who made the greatest. So I think
Yes.
And then, after that meeting, I had the opportunity to meet with 3 of the volunteers. But our agreement is that we thank them so much for their service training, the certs at the spring and fall training days and graduation. And in exchange, we would help them apply for Coastside Gifts, which is this means of raising money online. It happens throughout the Coastside and will occur in May. So we had a great meeting with them. We have 3 volunteers who are working with us directly. They have it well in hand. I thought, okay, well, this may take some coaching. They've got it. They've written grants. They know exactly what they're doing. There's another person who's a part of that who is the tech person who's got the Instagram account, and he's got the wonderful videos of volunteers in action, and he's got the still photos of the work that they do. So it's going to be easy to put them up there in Coastside Gifts this year. I've already arranged with Coastside Gifts for them to accept them, so it's a go.
Okay. Moving on, Land and Structures Committee, recommend committee.
I think we covered it, the architect, the fence,
All right. Vegetation Management Committee, Director Cheryl,
No report.
no report. Special District Association, no report. ALS JPA, no report. By the way, that, on here, that committee. For information, perhaps for Patrick, is that committee meets once a year. And we have a contract with them, so that it's not an ongoing thing, it's covered by a very lengthy contract. It is, however, the only liaison position or committee report for a member, a sole member of the board can commit the district. If I, as current representative, could commit the district, no other committee or liaison could do that. That's just strictly information I have not created to commit the district. Urgent preparedness, and in subsequent meetings, I believe we're going to have Chief Cosgrave cover that, but we do not have it this evening, as far as I know. Sir.
The CERT report is, we've had our 15 minutes of fame now. We were the headlines and we have them reviewed. And I had no idea that was coming. We knew there'd be a little article, but you know, had no idea we'd be the big story. I think this is good news, whatever. We were very proud because I think what it pointed out is how highly the community values this Coastside Fire Protection District, volunteer firefighters, and CERT working together on behalf of the community to train community members to go back to their neighborhoods and lead their own self-organized safety networks to be ready to be resilient for the first 48 hours to 3 weeks until the professional first responders can arrive and help in the case of a regional, small or regional emergency. So a big emergency. So that's we're proud. It's kind of hard, but we are really proud that the community came back and said thank you when we finally went over the top of 3,000 members. That's starting a little. That was big. I know I should stop about this, but that we have 363 certs and that we are working in 27 minutes. We thank you. None of this would have been possible. This whole thing without this board approving this implementation.
Thank you, Jim. Attorney's report, Kai.
Nothing other than to say thank you for another great year working with you all, and Happy New Year.
Fire Marshal's report.
I would like to tell you guys, before we start that real quick, that we did a very extensive interview process for the fire marshal. It's a 2-hour process. Because the fire marshal's job is also a field battalion chief of Cal Fire, not just the fire marshal. They are not expected regularly, but expected to do regular battalion chief duties as he did. So they're no different than any other battalion chief in the state. It's a 2-hour process. It was a 15-minute scenario that they had to run. It was very hard on a structure fire, and a 15-minute scenario that they had to run on a vegetation fire. A lot of stuff thrown at them. They're talking on 4 radios because we work in a dynamic system here where we deal with PSC, and then on the wildland fire, you're also dealing with Felton with the aircraft and other stuff. So it's a really tough process, and you have to prepare hard. There was 10 pretty hard questions that you didn't prepare for it and didn't know what you were getting yourself into with the Coastside Fire District Fire Marshal's operation. And I'd be happy to tell you guys that Patrick was the #1 candidate. Oh, we offered Patrick the job and he accepted, and here within the next week or so, we should be able to get approval or the process, the West way through where you can actually start the position as the fire marshal for Coastside Fire.
Great Christmas present.
So Patrick,
Well deserved.
Good job. Yeah, but we're happy that Patrick put in the work and the effort because it was a hard process. And if you didn't put in the work and the effort, you wouldn't make out the job, because it was even me doing the job for 3 years. I wasn't doing the questions. Oh man, these are hard questions. So I was doing the job, and even as a field battalion prior to that job, running the scenarios, if you didn't prepare for the scenarios, you were gonna fail.
Sure.
And he obviously put in the work, and fortunately, we just hired several brand new battalion chiefs, so he had people to go, I need help, let's study, show me what I need to know, let's practice. And anybody who's been in the fire service knows that's how we survive and promote and do that, as we reach out to our friends and partners and say, how do I study, how to prepare? And he obviously put in the work, and we're happy for him. So Patrick, but on that note, we'll give the fire marshal report.
Also 12 questions.
Okay, 12 questions.
12 questions. How about the fire chief, board chief, and so forth?
We'll let him do the fire marshal report real quick, and then I'll do the.
Oh, okay.
Just to finish off, to date, 787 plans have been reviewed. We are at 90% of completion on our mandatory inspections, which is roughly about approximately 110 that are mandatories within the district annually. With the completion by the end of the year, we'll be at 100%.
Excellent.
That's pretty much it. And just real quick, I just wanted to say, you guys were talking earlier about volunteers or retention. My dad was a volunteer here back in the day, so that's how I got my start. So it does go a long way around to being, a part of the community and sticking around. Two of my friends were also, their dads were volunteers, Lutz Muslak and Rich Janini, Mike's on the wall back there.
Yeah.
So this whole community involvement does come full circle. Yep.
Nice to see that, his dad started here and he's here, so full circle.
Thank you.
On the vegetation side,
Yes.
how are we doing with the tier 1, tier 2 properties that we have promised to mitigate? Are we done with that for the year?
Not complete. Well, so yes and no, the letters were sent out. We've identified properties. We're still in communication with some of the property owner litigation prior to doing that for them.
And as far as I know, we've never received, once again, we didn't receive any bids, I don't believe, from what Chris was telling me.
We're contractors.
Yeah, so when we went out for bids for people to do the work like we did last year,
Right,
nobody put in for it. I received multiple phone calls, and my name is still on there too. The people really wanted to explain the scope of work. And we can explain it to a point, but all these lots are different, right? So it's like I said, that you need to bid it as an hourly basis of what it costs for you to do X, Y, and Z. And I think a lot of people are scared to do that type of bid, and I said, throw a number at it. I mean, you stand to make a decent amount of money if you throw the right bid in, and I think people got scared to bid like that, and they said, can you take me to a specific lot? And I said, yeah, but if I take you to the lot next door, it's gonna be different than that one, and then it's gonna be one 2 miles away, it's gonna be different than that one. And I said, you're bidding a scope of work, and I talked to 3 different contractors, and Chris told me none of them bid for it, so.
so what do we do when we don't have someone to do the work?
We had a guy who did it last year, and I think he would do it again, but he's not bidding for it, he just, I think he hopes that we don't get it, and he comes in with a high price and we have no choice.
That's not good. So is this for the seasonal weed part of it, or is it the heavier fuels?
This is the heavier fuel, so seasonal will be one that's done, what, by June or July?
Correct. And,
Yeah,
after January 1st, we'll be exploring, some options on how to move forward, that to streamline the process as well within.
yeah.
We're available if you guys want to stop in and have a conversation, kind of where we're going with it.
Sure, we'll be stopping by.
Yeah, and our Louis captain will be indentured into that.
We would love to meet Jordan. We haven't yet.
Yes.
Yeah,
He's been out and about because we're still getting calls on. I've got this letter, what do I have to do specific to it? And so if you send out 500 letters and you have 100 people calling to specifically do on-site
Sure.
recommendations, he's been pretty busy.
and I know you work with Tyler and you work with,
Awesome.
Austin, a lot, and you'll like Jordan a lot. Jordan comes from a kind of a PIO background.
Right.
And he's done a lot of training in the PIO world, so he's really good with the public side of that, of communicating with the public, and so you guys want to join him, he's a great person. He jumped in, like, really jumped in, which is nice. He wants to learn and do it, so.
Have we lost
Okay.
Austin and Tyler?
No, they just moved over to more of the plan reviews and that stuff, and that's
Okay.
it's kind of like, it's almost like a volunteer to a pay division, right? So the Louis spot is kind of a stepping stone into our office. But fortunately for us with Jordan, he has zero interest in plan review and other stuff. He really enjoys being out on the public outreach. And I think that's the PIO background in him. So he enjoys that side of it. He told me originally he has no interest in that, but the other position that's where he wants to be is in the Louis spot. So I think hopefully we get a long-term position out of him.
Okay.
We're
So-
also fortunate to have multiple people in the office now that have been worked in that position,
Yeah.
so we have a lot of people he can lean on for information and
Right.
going
Yeah,
forward. we're pretty
and,
steady.
and both of them helped develop it. Basically, they were part of the original phase of it. So you have them in the office still to help him. So he'll be successful for sure.
Let's thank them for the work they did. It was outstanding.
Yes.
Thank you. That's
So,
all.
Chief Armstrong, comments on just general.
Yeah, what Chief Cox left here with his notes was, he just told me to go over, so he continues to have his monthly meeting with the sheriff's office, here locally. Tomorrow he's meeting with the city manager. He's still in discussions with, the county on, PSC about dispatching, and there's no immediate changes right now, but we're still working on the changes with PSC and making sure that the appropriate engines are being dispatched and the appropriate cover engines, and it's been a process. Like the other day I was out and I helped, the Tiny Chief Hibden on a call for a rescue because I was still here. And I noticed afterwards, well, we had all 3 engines on the coast on this incident and they never sent out a journal on volunteers. And I noticed that a little late into the incident, but I sent a report to the PSC and said, hey, you guys missed it here because we have engine 17 coming over the hill, 72 coming over the hill, but in the meantime, we could have had somebody here to help, so we're continuously making sure dispatch is doing their job.
And correct me if I'm wrong, so, but is it not usually the incident commander that would fire off that call, or does it come from dispatch?
No, dispatch knows if we have if all 3 engines on the coast go out, they should send a general alarm for a volunteer, no matter what, so.
Definitely look into it.
Yeah,
because
yeah, so we did.
What I've seen in generally happen more, so what I just mentioned, where the incident commander,
Yeah.
you see that's on that scene.
Yeah,
Would fire off that call for the general.
yeah, and what I learned in that call was it was dispatch as a potential rescue, and that's why I didn't trigger it. So
Yeah.
the change would have been and Hibden was talking to the Coast Guard on one radio, talking to PSC on the other one, talking to the harbor master on another radio, and then directing 2 to 3 fire engines on the other. And he didn't catch it, and I was there with him, and I didn't catch it, and then he goes, oh, they never upgraded it to a rescue, and that's why it didn't get caught, so, but it'd be nice if the dispatch center recognized that we're actually in rescue mode, and then did it, so they don't think on their own, but it's definitely something we wanted them to recognize it happened. Personnel wise, in the process of hiring additional fire operations engineers still, we are continuously offering jobs in that position and should continue to get people as needed, hopefully. Fire marshal announcement we just did. Paramedic supervisor training. This is about Ken Lord. He's been out with his wife being severely sick for a while and unsure when he's going to come back. I talked to him the other day and he asked for an additional more time. So it's really stuck in the air for him. He doesn't really know what's going on. Yeah. Operations wise, we've had several traffic accidents here on the coast and a handful of rescues, no significant fires to report. They did auto extrication training here and incident command classes were taught here at this facility this last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, right? They're in the process of planning a volunteer academy for next year, which does, and you guys mentioned it earlier, encompasses a couple other with La Honda, King Mountain, and Lomar coming 10 hours as well here. We had a leak on the facility here. The first rain we got last week before the rest of the rain came. And we were able to get that fixed the next day with that break in the rain. And he has addressed that this is a 50-year roof that's never been maintained. And I guess there's a lot of seams up there that take a special tool to crimp them to keep them seamed. They're starting to separate. And he said, basically, we're gonna need to take some preventative maintenance measures on this roof for it to last another 30 or 40 years. And if we don't, with the rust, there's a lot of rust. That's what the leak was from, with the rust. So I would say in the near future, we have to look at options of either doing sections of the roof to not be a big cost up front. And that's something we'll be looking at. Engine 44s in for annual maintenance. There's Meanstein is still working on outfitting the emergency response vehicle, the ERV. We talked about them looking at the 2 Pierces and that went well. They were happy with what they've seen. And engine 40, engine replacement is still taking place. So that's all we have.
Thank you. That's a lot of service.
I need to hear this phone call back, but that was the end of my report.
No. Great. Before we conclude, I would just like to, unless any, never had any. I would just like to point out that in our packet, the financial statement for PAS, which is for the month of October, we had a very solid month of $100,000 gain in that item. And for the purpose of the public, all the statistics of the district in terms of calls, timing, and everything else is available to the public. So they will see it either online or on purpose. And with that, I would like to express on behalf of the board a very Merry Christmas and happy holidays and a happy New Year to all the members of CAL FIRE, and thank you for your diligent, excellent service during this past year. Without objection, we adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know what you're doing?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good job.
The guy's going.
First meeting of,
Oh, there you go.
You're Bruce